Hi everyone, and welcome to Philanthropy Impact's Walk in My Shoes series for professional advisors. Today's session is a slight change to our usual format, where rather than a panel discussion, our board member and partner at MASECO Private Wealth, George King, will be in conversation with philanthropist and entrepreneur Tom Ilube CBE. Tom is a technology entrepreneur and educational philanthropist. He's also founder, CEO of London-based Crossword Cybersecurity and a non-exec director of the BBC. And today it has been announced that he's joined the board of WPP, the FTSE 100 world's largest advertising agency. Tom's career has included Callcredit Information Group. He founded Garlik, a venture capital-backed identity protection company. I knew that was going to throw me. Served as Chief Information Officer at Egg PLC, along with time spent at Goldman Sachs, PwC and the London Stock Exchange. Today, George and Tom will be exploring his journey from being a British entrepreneur to a catalytic educational philanthropist, and to hear his views on how the philanthropy sector can support racial equity, exemplified by his own journey of establishing, amongst a number of other charitable activities, the African Science Academy. We are super excited to hear from Tom today and grateful to both him and to George for taking their time from their busy schedules to share with us. This is a 30-minute session, and as usual, we ask you to post questions in the chat if you'd like George to ask Tom anything specific, and we will do our best to get to it. I will now pass over to George to make a start. Thanks, George.
Sophia, thanks for that intro. And Tom, I'm delighted that you have found the time to join us like this. We've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. Just quickly set the stage. I think hopefully a number of people joining us on the call or on the video are aware that Philanthropy Impact for quite some time has been an advocate of more philanthropy, more efficient, more in volume and scale, scaling that up through not just wealthy donors, but professional advisors to those donors. It's been a long-term carrion call. But what has been missing in some of that dialogue is a sense of diversity. And so while we are hearing and seeing more and more about women, we had Maverick Collective on here not long ago, we are only really beginning to delve more deeply into broader sense of diversity as it impacts philanthropy impact. And that's really the whole scale. That's the whole scale of philanthropy. So from the donors themselves and the diversity of donors. Unfortunately, that this tends to be a difficult topic. People often think this doesn't relate to me, and very much so. If I'm not, a really rich white guy, is this really a topic that is related to me, and that I should find important, as well as donor issues and causes and so forth, and getting beyond maybe some really stale stereotypes about just saving starving children in Africa, and thinking a lot more broadly about the diversity of both funders and issues to fund. So that's the backdrop, and it's a continuing theme that we are exploring more and more deeply. And it's great to have you on to share some of your history, your transition from just entrepreneur, if you can say the word just there, to, I like the term catalytic philanthropist, and I'd like you to explore that in particular. So maybe you can set the stage for us. Just give us your journey in brief, and then let's get into a dialogue around that.
Absolutely. So I started my career in corporate life, and then when I was about 30, I became an entrepreneur. I left Goldman Sachs. I set up my first tech company, and for the last 20 years, I've been setting up startup companies, building them up, selling, do it again, and so forth. I think I got about 5 years or so into that. I had one or two good results, and at that point started to think about what I was going to do on the entrepreneurial side, on the philanthropic side. I decided that I would focus my attention in much the same way as I focus as an entrepreneur. I decided to focus my attention. So what I did was to say my focus is going to be education, and in particular secondary education, because as an entrepreneur I had been asked several times to go into schools and talk to young people, and what I had found was that when you're talking to sort of teenagers in their late teens making that decision about where they're going, you can have a profound impact at that point. And what I suppose I've been interested in from a philanthropic point of view is looking for the points where you can have an impact and focusing my attention on that. And actually, that's very much echoed in your group on philanthropy impact. You know, if you can find the impact points and put the leverage there, then you can have an impact. And that led me into setting up schools in the UK. I founded Hammersmith Academy. I was involved in founding several others. And then when I felt ready and had all the bits of the jigsaw together, creating the African Gifting Foundation and setting up the African Science Academy, the all-girls science and technology school, which is based in Ghana, but takes girls from all across Africa.
So there are a couple of pieces there, Tom, that I want to make sure we just come back and dig a little deeper on. One of the very important things you said there, which I know is often a sticking point for people. So there are many people on the call like me who are professional advisors to wealthy people, and they want to do something, but there's two things there, sort of figuring out what's your thing. So you're talking about education and specifically teens. How do you figure that out? And there's another piece, which is how do you know you're ready? And you're just talking about sort of getting to some point where you knew you were ready to take that next step. Those are two frequent sticking points. What's my thing and how do I know I'm ready? Maybe you can just dig a little deeper in those.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I think getting to what your thing is, I found that I needed to give myself permission. I needed to give myself permission to focus on what my thing was, but also decide what I didn't do. Because as you become more successful and frankly, you have some discretionary wealth and people start to realize that, then you get approached by all sorts of things. And all of them, every single one of them really matter. You know, it really matters to save the environment. It really matters to help with this hospital. It really matters what's happening in this part of the world and that part of the world and closer to home. And you can feel guilty if you don't do something towards each of them. I think I had the advantage of being an entrepreneur. If you try and do everything, as a startup guy, as an entrepreneur, if you try and do everything, you will fail. And you know, having learned that and being drilled into that through my entrepreneurial career, it was relatively easy for me to say, right, I am going to focus on a particular thing. I think for me, that needed to come from somewhere deep down. It needed to come from something that, you know, in my life, in my history, in my family history, you know, really echoed and made the difference with me. Because what I found is that being a philanthropist and being a hands-on philanthropist is hard. You know, it can be really, really hard. And therefore, you've got to be doing something that really matters to you, not something that you're going to feel good about when it's going well and everyone's clapping and cheering and so forth. Something that you are still going to do when nobody will help you, everything's going wrong, it's raining outside, etc., etc. But you're still going to do it anyway. And you have to kind of allow yourself to dig deep to look for that thing and then not do the other stuff and focus your attention on that. I think the feeling of readiness kind of comes from when you just, you know, that will, you don't need to force that will come naturally. But also, I think that it is important not to force it. So I don't think, this is a personal thing, I don't think you should jump into philanthropy too early on. You know, I think that it just takes a bit of time to build up the experience, the awareness of the world around you, and get to the point where you sort of think, okay, now I'm ready, and just allow it to come naturally. It might come earlier, it might come later. Let it happen, rather than thinking, I'm at this age, I ought to feel like this, I ought to do it. Ought and should are just not very good words in this sector, I think.
I take your point on that. You know, there's a number of pieces in there that I think are really important. I mentioned at the outset that people should have some clear takeaways, and there are several in what you were saying. The importance of saying no, the importance of sort of not just figuring out what you want to do, but what you don't want to do is quite important. We have some data that we show in other slides that shows a discrepancy between what people give to and where their passions are. And often it's just because they were asked to do something that doesn't align with where their passions are. So I think that's a really, really great shout out. You talked about being hands-on. I want to come back and explore what that means to you.
Yeah.
in just a second, but let me just have you finish your story for a second about not just teens and education, but girls in particular also highlighted. And I just want to come back to that as an inflection point, as an area for catalytic change, why that's a focus.
Yeah, so so the focus of our school, the African Science Academy, is girls' science and technology education in and across Africa. And we take girls from all across the continent. When we set up the school, again, we were asking ourselves, what is the point of biggest leverage? Where can we have the biggest impact? And we know, because we've been involved in education in Africa for 5 years before and in the UK's technical education as well, we were aware that brilliant young women were diverting away from science and technology. They were interested in it as they were growing up, as they were in secondary school, and then as they got further up, they were moving away. And it just seemed to us that there was such a waste there. You know, if you've got a young woman born into a relatively modest background in any part of Africa who has the brain power of an Albert Einstein, you know, and you're not using that, you're not leveraging that, the continent isn't leveraging that, what a waste. And you're looking there at a continent with over 1 billion people, so over 500 million women. There are young women there, you know, 250 million, 300 million young women who have immense talent, and that's not being tapped into. Then that seems to us, and seemed to me in particular, that is just something that's being wasted, that needs to be harnessed. And often in science and technology educational environments, you'll see a disproportionate number of boys or men, and you know, women might struggle in that environment. I mean, if you're in a class of 300 and there are 20 women, that is a tough place to be and really get your voice heard and have an impact. We wanted to completely reverse that. So we're saying, let's find young women who are exceptionally academically gifted, love science and technology, and are in an environment that is precisely designed for them and their needs so that they can really flourish, and then off they go out into the world and, you know, have an impact. So again, it was about leverage. That was the important thing there.
Fantastic. All right. I'm very glad you finished painting that picture so we understand the full scope of what you're doing and why and how impactful that is. To take nothing away, Tom, from your own brilliance and own achievement, I suspect along the way you've had some help. And I'd love you to share with everyone today what type of help that was. If it was help from family and models, help from peers, following in someone else's footsteps, or someone else's seeing from afar what someone else is doing, or professional advisors or others giving a steer or whatever. Talk a little about the help you've had in achieving what you've achieved.
Yeah, so I mean, being a hands-on philanthropist and being an entrepreneur are remarkably similar in the sense that it's a team sport. You know, people often see the philanthropist or the entrepreneur from afar and just think it's all about that person. But if you are that person, you know that it's a team sport, and that's how you get things done. So I've relied a lot on my professional advisors and people around me who've got the experience of putting together the right structures in the right way in order to reassure and attract the right sort of donors to come in alongside me, to build up the relationships, whether they're on the legal side, whether they're on the financial advice side, whether they're on the corporate structure side. And I get that team involved early on in anything I do on the philanthropy side in order to structure things in the right way, because you just can't get the support that you need unless things are structured in the right way. So that's really important to me. I've had inspiration from just watching what other entrepreneurs have done in the past and what other philanthropists have done in the past in order to achieve their goals and push things forwards. And you just spread out to a whole network of people to help make things happen. But I would say having the right professional advisors helping you structure what it is you're going to do, because as a first time, as an early philanthropist, you rush in with huge amounts of enthusiasm and you've got some money and you're doing this, that and the other, and you need some people that are going to say, okay, just calm down a bit, focus, this is how to shape it, this is how to structure it, let's get this going, and here are the reasons why, and here's what happens, here are the risks. Sometimes people don't like to talk about the risks, and and here's how you need to structure. If you want to draw other people into this later on, you're going to have to show results. Here's how you might show results later on. But also sometimes the personal stuff. As a family man, if I'm doing it, if I'm giving money away to this cause, then what does that mean for my family? And what does that mean for my overall portfolio, and are things structured in the right way? So having a financial advice that can tell you, okay, this is how to structure things personally, and to do it in a way that then allows you to use this money towards this goal. And if I was you, here's how you might bring family members into it and so forth. You need that sort of input, definitely.
It's that's a message that I know as a advisor I end up sharing with a number of people who have some type of a sudden wealth event. It might be inheritance, it might be selling a business, it might be something where there's a sudden wealth event. Some of them immediately know that they would like to be philanthropic, even if they haven't sort of figured out what their thing is. And that advice that you've just given to sort of pause and take some time and get some advice and think it through a bit is usually a really good first piece of advice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. To me, it's a 10-year game. When I looked at this, I looked at what I'm doing, what impact do I want to have over the next 10 years? And if you think about it in that sort of long-term way, it just allows you to sort of calm down a bit and think strategically about where you're going, not sort of dash off in this direction or that direction, but just steadily move in the direction that you want to go. Yeah.
And just for clarity with my colleagues at Philanthropy Impact, it's not antithetical to the mission, right? So we want more philanthropy, but that doesn't necessarily mean the day you get the money in your pocket, go give it away. We're going to have more philanthropy, better, with more effect, with more impact, with a more thoughtful and structured approach. Absolutely.
It really is important to think about the impact that you're trying to have, the outcomes that you're trying to look for. Incredibly important. Yeah.
So Tom, let's start to uncover the diversity aspect of this a little bit more. I mean, one of the points of leverage, of course, is not just giving away money you've raised in your lifetime, but money you fundraise, that you become a catalytic leverage point for much more capital than your own to deploy in these things that you're doing. But for that to happen, the things you're doing need to be attractive to other people. Talk a little bit about challenges or successes in both, I guess, in fundraising and in finding other donors and so forth. Just how have you found that to be personally, given who you are and what you're raising money for?
Yeah. I think there are some real challenges there. I mean, I've been able to do it, but someone once said to me that it's easier to raise money for a donkey sanctuary in Britain than it is to raise money for a school in Africa, and that's probably true, actually. And there's nothing wrong with donkey sanctuaries, and a lot of people support them genuinely, but it is hard. It's a long, if I say to people 3 words, I say, Africa, education, philanthropy, and draw a picture, then the picture that they have in their mind is a group of African children sitting under a tree, probably without a school building, or if they have got a school building, it hasn't got any windows, and they need it painted, or they need a few books, or they need some desks or whatever. Whereas my school, which is Africa Education Charity, is a high-tech environment for some of the brightest young women that you could possibly know, working in that environment, and doing things that you would rarely see in any school in the world. And I'm trying to paint that picture for people and trying to encourage them to support it. Now, interestingly, I had a response once from a donor that I was talking to, and I was saying, I'm trying to raise this money, you know, I put money in myself, I'm trying to raise additional money for the school, will you support? And I told him the sort of amounts of money that I was trying to raise. And his response was sort of, well, you know, if this was a school in the UK, yes, but in Africa, you know, you don't need that. You should be able to, for a few £1,000s, you should be able to set up a school, and, you know, and it should only cost 5,000 or 10,000 a year to run a school in Africa. You know, that's sort of the mindset. So you do have that sort of barrier to overcome. And as a black man going out and raising money from donors, again, there are the same sort of hurdles that you need to overcome as a black entrepreneur when you're going out and raising money. There's a perception that people might have. There's a question mark about, so you're going to do something in Africa. I'm going to give you money, and you, this black man, are going to take it, and then you're going to do something in Africa. Really? How is that going to work? So you have to kind of take people on a journey. You realize that you know, before you even get to essentially convincing them about your project, you are selling trust. They need to trust you. Now, interestingly, this is a place where your professional advisors can really play an important role, because if your professional advisors, they know you, they know your finances, they know you inside out. If they are related to that conversation, they're saying to a potential donor, you should have a chat with Tom, really, really interesting guy, good guy, doing something with his school, and they put you together, then they've already helped you over that trust bit to start with, and the person you're talking to is now interested potentially in hearing the project. But at the moment, the world of philanthropy in the UK is in some ways surprisingly undiverse, and that is something that we're going to need to really sort of explore and wrestle with here in the UK.
That's an excellent point. I want to refer to a question that a mutual friend of ours, actually, Patricia, has asked. I'll give you full disclosure up front that on this topic of Black Lives Matter, I've been quoted in a couple of publications in the last few weeks, stating that my own view is that it might be a catalytic point for change. It hasn't happened yet, but it might create the conditions that allow that to change. But Patricia's question is, what's your view on this? Do you view this as something that's sort of just passing, or do you view this as something that is a potential catalyst for change? Specifically vis-a-vis philanthropy, though, you can expand that topic if you'd like. Sort of, what's your view?
My view is that it has created space for a conversation. That space that has been created won't stay open for that long. And to some extent, I'm already seeing it starting to close. It is still open at the moment, but I'm seeing it starting to close already. And therefore, the challenge now, and I mean now and probably over the next 3 to 6 months, but not much longer than that, is how do you use that window that has opened? And I think that, you know, I'll give you an example, not so much in the philanthropic world, but it sort of applies. If you're in a large company, 3 months ago in the heart of the Black Lives Matter moment, and as a Black executive or a Black employee or a group of Black employees in that company, you said, we want to have a conversation with the chief executive. You would have a conversation with the chief executive that week, if not the same day. The diary would be cleared, an hour would be put aside, and you would be sitting down and having that conversation. Move forward 3 months. If you as a group of employees say, now we want to have a conversation with the chief executive, you might get that conversation, although it'll be in a month's time when the person's diary is available. More likely, you will be passed perhaps to the head of HR or your departmental head or whatever. The chief exec might pop their head round the door to just say hello and then say something encouraging and then leave it to their colleagues. In 6 months' time, the door will have closed and you won't be having that conversation at that level. So the time to have those conversations and the genuine desire to listen to them is now and over the next few months. If you've got that opportunity, you have to be very smart about how you use it. You can't waste it. You've got 30 minutes in front of the person who has the power and leverage. What exactly are you going to ask for? You know, if you just say, I wish things were better, then they'll say, yes, I also wish things were better. You know, would you like a Black Lives Matter banner to be put up for a day? That's what they'll say. And you know, let's do a listening exercise and so forth. If you say something specific, if you say, what we want is for every decision-making room in this organization to have at least one Black person in the room, is that something you can do? And here are our ideas on how it can be done. Well, that is very specific. And then that decision maker either has to say, yes, let's do that, or no, I don't think that's a good thing to do. And then you can have a conversation about it. So I'm optimistic if the moment is used in the right way, but I don't think it will stay open for a long time.
I agree with you in terms of the timeliness of this, and with the advice that it needs to be a specific ask, not just let me share my experience and so you can hear a different voice. So I completely agree with both of those. And I think that's, for me, what's different about this moment is it's not just about, you know, let's hear more stories, but there does seem to be some appetite for an imperative, for an action. So if you can actually come forward with actionable suggestions, proposals, it feels like there's a window there. I agree. Sadly, if I can take a slightly different perspective, Tom, sadly, the window may not close that quick because we may get more of this. So, you know, you're right. If it's status quo, it will fade. But sadly, if there are another incident and then another, we may find this building on this and not closing, which of course is not what I would wish for, but it may extend the time frame. We'll have to see.
Yeah, absolutely. That is possible.
Okay. I see John's here. Does that mean we're running out of time, John?
Very well. You've got another minute or two. There's an interesting question that's just come up. Do you want to take a quick look at it?
Sure.
And maybe if you want to respond to it, and then we'll have a couple more minutes on to this session because it's so important. Yeah.
So there's a question that asks about is charity the opium of the privileged? A fascinating question. And do we want to get to the real solution lies in a world in which charity will have become unnecessary? It is an interesting question. I don't feel like that personally. I feel as if, in a sense, charity is a conversation. The person making funds and resources available and the people that are benefiting from it and leveraging it are in a conversation with each other, and everyone derives something from it. Doing my charitable work gives my life meaning. So the people who benefit may think that I'm just giving something to them. Actually, they are giving as much to me as well. They are definitely giving as much to me as I'm giving to them. They're just giving me something different. So that's the way I relate to it.
Okay, thank you. final words of wisdom, because obviously we've been talking about what kind of society do we want to build, which is the topic for our next magazine. So final words of wisdom about the topic that we've been covering, and what kind of society would you like us to build?
For me, I think that as a philanthropist and as an entrepreneur who became a philanthropist, it's the philanthropic work that I do that gives my life real meaning. And that, I think, is really important to understand when you're dealing as a professional advisor or anyone else with entrepreneurs, with business people, and so forth. The fact that at some point in their life, they will almost always start to think about, right, I've achieved all this, I've got this money and so forth. What is it really about? And what they'll often find with your help is what it's really about is the philanthropic work that they can do, and helping them take that dream, take that meaning and turn it into action is just incredibly powerful. It is a gift that you can give to someone to enable them to do that.
It's interesting because charity and giving is just not the wealthy giving. A vast majority of money that's been given is people who are not super wealthy. And so it's important to do that. So they get meaning, they get joy. So I think there'll always be room for charity, taking a broad definition of that. I live in a village. The amount of charity that's done to support your neighbor and people in the village is quite phenomenal. George, final word to you. Maybe. Well,
John, you touched on exactly what I wanted my final word to be. I think the final word is that this, if the world we build is that people recognize that philanthropy is for them. And so whether it's big or little, whether they're men or women, black, white, whatever, if they just recognize that philanthropy is for them in whatever form, and it's money, it's time, it's expertise, or whatever it is, and they find their thing and they go do it with their own passion and bringing along people in that journey, I think that's a great vision. I want to see that world.
Great, George. Thank you. Well, this has been quite inspiring. And Tom, thank you for being such an exemplar. George, for being such a super supporter. Anyway, over to you, Zofia.
Yeah, thank you both very much. That was brilliant.